In a small town painted with the vibrant hues of wealth and success, there was a humble mechanic named Lucas. He owned a modest workshop tucked away on a less traveled street, where the sounds of clanging metal and the scent of motor oil intertwined to create a symphony of labor. Lucas was known for his exceptional skills, yet to the people who drove their luxury cars past his shop, he was merely invisible. Every day, the elite of the town brushed by him without a second glance, their noses held high, their laughter ringing in the air like a taunt. To them, Lucas was nothing more than a poor mechanic, a mere cog in the machine of society. They often shared snide remarks about him, whispering among themselves as they showcased their gleaming vehicles. Little did they know, the man they so easily dismissed was the best mechanic around, capable of fixing what others deemed unfixable. Lucas had a kind heart, always willing to lend a hand to those in need, regardless of their social status. He took pride in his work, believing that every car deserved the best care. His hands, calloused and stained with grease, were a testament to his dedication. Yet, as he toiled day in and day out, he could feel the weight of their disdain pressing down on him, punctuating his existence with a sense of worthlessness. Despite the ridicule, Lucas remained steadfast, pouring his soul into his craft. He was a master of his trade, often working late into the night, perfecting the intricacies of each engine and ensuring every vehicle that left his shop was in pristine condition. His reputation, however, was marred by the stigma of poverty. The wealthy residents of the town preferred to take their cars to flashy dealerships where they were treated like royalty, overlooking the mechanic who could offer them the same, if not superior, service. On a typical day, as Lucas worked diligently, he overheard conversations from the affluent customers who frequented the nearby cafe, boasting about their wealth and status. They laughed at the thought of ever needing someone like him, dismissing his expertise as irrelevant to their luxurious lives. But Lucas never let their words extinguish his spirit. Instead, he found solace in the small victories of his work, each car he repaired, each grateful smile from a customer who recognized his skill, fueled his passion. One fateful afternoon, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the town, Lucas's world would begin to shift. A sleek, black luxury car pulled into his workshop, its polished surface gleaming under the fading light. The driver stepped out, exuding an air of arrogance that radiated from every pore. It was Enrique, the town's millionaire, known for his ruthless business dealings and inflated ego. As Enrique strutted into the workshop, he glanced around with disdain, his eyes landing on Lucas. The mechanic looked up, wiping his hands on a rag, ready to assist. But instead of a greeting, Enrique unleashed a tirade of insults, belittling Lucas in front of his peers who had gathered to witness the spectacle. "How can you possibly call yourself a mechanic? Look at this place. It's a dump," he jeered, his laughter echoing through the walls. Lucas stood there, heart pounding, feeling the humiliation wash over him like a cold wave. The laughter of the onlookers pierced his heart, but he remained silent, swallowing the bitterness of their scorn. It was a moment that would linger, a painful reminder of the divide between the wealthy and the working class, setting the stage for the events that would soon unfold. Little did they know, this encounter was just the beginning of a story that would shake the foundations of their world, revealing the hidden strength of the man they deemed insignificant. Lucas, the invisible mechanic, was about to become the hero they never expected. Enrique was not just a name. He was a force to be reckoned with in the small town. As the owner of half the businesses and a mansion that sprawled across the outskirts, he personified wealth and power. His presence commanded respect, or so he believed. With tailored suits that screamed luxury and a watch that could feed a family for a month, he drove through the streets in his sleek, black sports car, a symbol of his status. On that fateful day, he decided to pay a visit to Lucas's workshop, a place he had previously scoffed at from the comfort of his high-end vehicle. As he stepped out of his car, the sun glinted off the polished metal, casting shadows on the ground that seemed to mimic his imposing nature. He strutted toward the workshop with an air of superiority, flanked by a couple of his wealthy friends, all eager to witness the spectacle they anticipated. Inside the workshop, Lucas was knee-deep in oil and sweat, focused on a vintage car that had seen better days. He was in his element, surrounded by tools that felt like extensions of his very being. The sound of laughter and the clinking of glasses from the nearby cafe faded into the background as he immersed himself in the rhythm of his work. But that moment of peace was abruptly shattered. "Hey, you!" Enrique's voice boomed, cutting through the air like a knife. Lucas looked up, momentarily startled. The sight of the millionaire, flanked by his entourage, made his stomach churn. He had encountered men like Enrique before, those who thrived on belittling others to inflate their own egos. "What's wrong with this piece of junk?" Enrique sneered, gesturing at the car Lucas was working on. "I thought you were the best mechanic in town. Or is it just talk?" Laughter erupted from his friends, echoing off the walls of the workshop. Lucas felt a flush of anger rise within him, but he maintained his composure. He had dealt with arrogance before, he wouldn't let it break him now. "This car requires some specialized parts, Mr. Enrique. I assure you, I can fix it," he replied, trying to keep his voice steady. But Enrique wasn't interested in explanations. "A poor mechanic in a rundown shop, what do you know about cars like this?" He stepped closer, invading Lucas's personal space, his tone dripping with disdain. "You're nothing but a failure hiding behind grease and tools." The words stung, slicing through Lucas's pride. But it wasn't just the insults that hurt, it was the realization that Enrique's arrogance represented a larger societal contempt for those who worked with their hands. In that moment, Lucas felt the weight of his invisibility, the burden of being underestimated by those who believed wealth equated to worth. As the humiliation unfolded, Lucas's heart ached not just for himself but for the countless others who had been dismissed and ridiculed. He glanced at the onlookers, a mix of curiosity and pity in their eyes, and for a brief moment, he considered walking away. But he couldn't give them the satisfaction. Instead, he squared his shoulders and met Enrique's gaze with a quiet defiance. "You may have money and power, but that doesn't define who I am," Lucas said, his voice steadying. The words hung in the air, a challenge to the millionaire's arrogance. Enrique's expression shifted, surprise flickering in his eyes. He hadn't expected resistance from someone he deemed beneath him. But before he could respond, his friends erupted into laughter again, drowning out any semblance of respect for the mechanic. "Let's go, Enrique. This place is a joke," one of them quipped, and they turned to leave, their laughter trailing behind them. As they walked away, Lucas felt a mix of anger and determination brewing within him. This encounter with Enrique would not define him. Instead, it would ignite a fire that would lead to something greater. Behind the walls of that humble workshop, the invisible mechanic was ready to rise, and the townsfolk would soon learn that true strength often lay hidden beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to emerge. As the dust settled from the humiliating encounter, Lucas returned to his work, his mind racing with thoughts of the arrogant millionaire and the crowd that had witnessed the debacle. However, amidst the laughter and ridicule, one pair of eyes lingered in his memory: Isabella, Enrique's wife. While the others reveled in their superiority, she had stood quietly, an enigma wrapped in a designer dress, watching the scene unfold with an expression that spoke volumes. Isabella was not just another trophy wife, she was a woman caught in the web of her husband's ambitions and the expectations of their affluent society. Her beauty was striking, with long flowing hair and eyes that sparkled like emeralds, but there was something deeper behind her gaze, an unsettling fear that hinted at a life far removed from the glamour of wealth. She had always been the silent observer, the one who smiled politely at social gatherings while her heart ached with the burdens she carried. Lucas had noticed her during Enrique's tirade, her expression shifting from shock to concern. As she stood there, a mere spectator to the unfolding drama, he could feel an invisible connection forming between them, a shared understanding of being trapped in their respective worlds. While he was the mechanic, the underdog fighting for respect, she was the elegant wife, ensnared in a life dictated by wealth and power, yet yearning for freedom. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the workshop, Lucas couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. Isabella's look of fear haunted him, and he found himself wondering about the life she led behind the closed doors of their mansion. What secrets did she hold? What kind of life did she endure beside a man like Enrique? Days turned into weeks, and the encounter began to fade from the memories of the townsfolk, But Lucas couldn't forget Isabella. He often caught himself glancing at the luxury cars that zoomed past his workshop, hoping to catch a glimpse of her. Was she as trapped as he imagined? Did she feel the weight of her husband's arrogance? Then, one fateful evening as Lucas was closing up shop, he saw it, a familiar silhouette approaching through the dimming light. His heart raced as he recognized Isabella, her figure framed by the fading sun. She looked disheveled, a stark contrast to the polished persona she usually projected. Her designer dress was slightly torn, and her hands trembled as she reached for the door of the workshop. "Lucas," she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. There was desperation in her tone, a haunting urgency that sent shivers down his spine. He stepped forward, instinctively sensing that something was terribly wrong. "Isabella, what's happened?" he asked, concern flooding his voice. She looked around, ensuring they were alone, her eyes wide with fear. It was as if she had just escaped from a nightmare and was now seeking refuge in the only place she felt safe. "I need your help," she said, her voice quivering. "Please. I don't know who else to turn to." Lucas felt a surge of protective instinct. In that moment, he understood that beneath the polished exterior and the facade of wealth, there was a woman in distress, a soul yearning for liberation. "Come in," he urged, ushering her inside the workshop, the sounds of the outside world fading into the background. As she entered, Lucas noticed the pain etched on her face, the weight of her worries visible in her posture. She took a deep breath, her eyes darting around the workshop as if searching for solace in the chaos of tools and machinery. I have to tell you something," she stammered, struggling to maintain her composure. Lucas nodded, urging her to continue. He could feel the gravity of the moment pressing down on them, a fragile tension that hung in the air. The mechanic who had been dismissed as invisible was now becoming a confidant, a beacon of hope for a woman trapped in a gilded cage. Little did they both know, this encounter would set off a chain of events that would forever alter their lives, unraveling the threads of deception and fear that bound them both. As Isabella prepared to unveil the truth, Lucas sensed that he was on the brink of a journey that would challenge everything he believed about himself and the world around him. The night air was thick with tension as Isabella stood in Lucas's workshop, the weight of her confession pressing heavily on her shoulders. Shadows danced around them, illuminated only by the flickering fluorescent lights, creating an atmosphere that felt charged with urgency. Lucas could see the fear in her eyes, a reflection of the turmoil that had brought her to his door. "Please, Lucas," she urged, her voice trembling. "You have to listen to me. I'm not safe. I was being followed." Her words hung in the air like a warning, a harbinger of the danger that loomed just beyond the walls of the workshop. "What do you mean?" Lucas asked, his heart racing. He stepped closer, his instincts kicking in. "Who's following you?" Isabella took a shaky breath, her hands clenching into fists at her sides. "It's Enrique. He's not who everyone thinks he is. There are things he's involved in, dangerous things." He felt a jolt of disbelief. The man he had seen so arrogantly belittling him was involved in something sinister? "What are you talking about?" Lucas pressed, trying to grasp the gravity of her words. Before she could respond, the sound of tires screeching outside shattered the moment. Lucas's heart sank. The unmistakable roar of a powerful engine echoed through the night, sending a chill down his spine. "It's him," Isabella whispered, her eyes wide with terror. Without thinking, Lucas grabbed her hand and pulled her deeper into the workshop, the mechanical chaos around them suddenly feeling like their only sanctuary. "We need to hide," he urged, his mind racing. He glanced around, searching for a place to conceal her from the impending threat. They ducked behind a stack of tires, the smell of rubber and oil enveloping them. The sound of the car door slamming echoed in the silence, followed by the heavy footsteps of Enrique as he approached. Lucas's heart pounded in his chest, the adrenaline coursing through his veins as he felt the weight of Isabella's fear beside him. "Where are you, Isabella?" Enrique's voice boomed, filled with a menacing authority that sent shivers down Lucas's spine. "You can't hide from me forever." As he spoke, Lucas could hear the unmistakable click of a gun being loaded. a sound that sent a wave of dread crashing over him. Isabella gasped, her grip tightening around Lucas's arm. He glanced at her, and for a fleeting moment, he saw the woman she truly was. Not just a wealthy wife, but a person who had been ensnared in a web of deceit and danger. "Stay quiet," he whispered, his voice barely audible. They remained frozen in place, the world outside their hiding spot fading into a distant hum. Lucas could feel the heat radiating from Isabella's body, her fear palpable in the cramped space. Enrique's footsteps drew closer, and Lucas's mind raced with thoughts of how to protect Isabella. He couldn't let her fall into the hands of a man like Enrique, a man who wielded power like a weapon. As the footsteps approached the entrance of the workshop, Lucas felt a surge of determination. He would do whatever it took to keep her safe. Suddenly, the door swung open, and Enrique stormed in, his eyes scanning the room with a predatory gaze. "Isabella!" he called again, his voice laced with anger. "You think you can just run away from me?" Lucas held his breath, praying that the shadows would hide them from the raging man. As Enrique stepped further inside, Lucas's mind raced. He had to act quickly. In that moment, he decided to confront the millionaire. If Enrique found Isabella, all hope would be lost. Gathering every ounce of courage, Lucas stepped out from behind the tires, his heart pounding like a drum in his chest. "Leave her alone, Enrique," he shouted, his voice steady despite the fear coursing through him. The millionaire turned, surprise flickering across his face, quickly replaced by a scowl. "What do you think you're doing, mechanic?" Enrique sneered, his eyes narrowing. "You think you can protect her?" "I won't let you hurt her," Lucas replied, the fire of defiance igniting within him. "You're not the man everyone thinks you are, and I won't stand by while you terrorize her." As the tension in the air thickened to an almost unbearable degree, Lucas realized he was standing on the precipice of something monumental. This confrontation was not just about Isabella. It was about standing up against the tyranny of wealth and power, a battle between the invisible mechanic and the arrogant millionaire. Isabella watched from the shadows, her breath caught in her throat. In that moment, Lucas became more than just a mechanic. He transformed into a beacon of hope, ready to face the storm head-on, risking everything to protect the woman who had found the courage to seek him out. The air crackled with tension as Lucas stood his ground, facing Enrique, the arrogant millionaire who had belittled him just weeks before. The workshop, once a sanctuary filled with the comforting sounds of machinery, now felt like a battleground. Isabella remained hidden in the shadows, her heart pounding as she strained to hear the confrontation unfold. "What do you think you're going to do, mechanic?" Enrique taunted, his voice dripping with contempt. "You believe you can protect her from me? You're nothing but a poor, worthless man who can't even afford to keep his own business afloat." Lucas felt a surge of anger wash over him, but he pushed it down, focusing on the gravity of the situation. "You don't scare me, Enrique. I know you're not the man everyone thinks you are," he replied, his voice steady. "Isabella deserves to be free from your control. She's not a possession for you to wield." Enrique's expression shifted, a flicker of something darker crossing his face. "You have no idea what you're talking about," he spat. "Isabella is my wife, and I'll do whatever it takes to keep her in line. You think you can play the hero? You have no idea what you're getting involved in." Lucas's heart raced as he sensed the underlying threat in Enrique's words. "What have you done to her?" he demanded, stepping closer. "Why is she terrified of you? You're hiding something, and I want to know what it is." For a brief moment, silence enveloped the room, the tension palpable. Enrique's eyes narrowed as he weighed his options, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his features. Lucas could see the man grappling with the fact that his facade was beginning to crack. "Fine," Enrique sneered, his arrogance returning. "You want the truth? Let me tell you about the man you're defending." He took a step forward, invading Lucas's personal space. "I've built this empire with blood, sweat, and tears. You think I'm just a businessman? I'm involved in things that would make your head spin. If I lose control over Isabella, it could ruin everything I've worked for." The implications of Enrique's words hung heavily in the air. Lucas felt a chill run down his spine. "What do you mean by things?" he pressed, refusing to back down. "What kind of empire are you running?" Enrique chuckled darkly, a sinister smile creeping across his face. "Drugs, money laundering, blackmail. My empire is built on power, and you're too naive to understand what it takes to keep it running. Isabella is just a pawn in my game, and if she tries to escape, I'll make sure she pays the price." The revelation hit Lucas like a punch to the gut. The man he had thought was merely arrogant was actually involved in a world of darkness and danger. Every instinct in him screamed that he needed to protect Isabella, not just from her husband's wrath, but from the criminal underbelly that Enrique had woven around them. "Isabella deserves better than this," Lucas said, his voice firm. "You may think you have all the power, but you're wrong. The truth always comes out, and I won't let you keep her in this nightmare." Enrique's laughter filled the room, but it was devoid of any real amusement. "You think you can save her? You're just a mechanic, Lucas. You're nothing compared to the forces I can unleash. If you continue to meddle in my affairs, you'll regret it." As the words sank in, Lucas felt a new sense of determination rise within him. He wasn't just fighting for Isabella's freedom, he was standing up against a man who represented everything wrong with the world, a man who used his wealth and power to control and manipulate. In that moment, the stakes became clear. Lucas knew that he had to act quickly, not only to protect Isabella but to expose Enrique for the criminal he truly was. The invisible mechanic was ready to step into the light, and he would not allow fear to dictate his actions any longer. "Let's see how far your power goes, Enrique," Lucas challenged, his voice steady. "I'll protect Isabella, no matter what it takes. You may have money, but you'll never have the strength of a man who fights for what's right." As the tension in the workshop reached a boiling point, Lucas felt a sense of resolve wash over him. He was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, determined to unravel the truth and liberate Isabella from the clutches of her tyrant husband. The battle lines had been drawn, and Lucas was prepared to fight for justice, no matter the cost. With the weight of the confrontation hanging heavily in the air, Lucas felt a surge of determination coursing through him. He couldn't allow Enrique to intimidate him or keep Isabella trapped in a life of fear. The stakes were higher than ever, and he knew he had to act quickly to protect her from the darkness that surrounded her. "Isabella, listen to me," Lucas said, turning to her as she remained hidden in the shadows, fear etched across her face. "We need to get you out of here. We can't let Enrique find you." Isabella nodded, her eyes wide with anxiety. "But where can we go? He'll find me. He always finds me." Lucas took a deep breath, trying to keep his own fear at bay. "I have a plan. We'll use your car. I can fix it up quickly, and we can leave before he has a chance to come back." They crept toward Isabella's vehicle, parked just outside the workshop. It was a luxury car, but it had seen better days, much like its owner. Lucas quickly assessed the damage, scratches and dents that told a story of Isabella's desperate escape. He could sense the urgency in the air, and he knew every second counted. "Help me get it started," Lucas instructed, his hands already moving to open the hood. "I'll need you to keep an eye out." As Isabella kept watch, Lucas worked swiftly, his fingers flying over the engine. He could hear the distant rumbling of the streets, the sounds of cars passing by, but all he could focus on was the task at hand. He knew that getting the car running was their best chance at freedom. "Lucas, I'm scared," Isabella admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "What if he finds us?" "We won't let that happen," he reassured her, his voice firm. "I'll do whatever it takes to keep you safe." As he continued to work, Lucas couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. He was acutely aware of the danger lurking just beyond the shadows, the threat of Enrique's wrath hanging over them like a dark cloud. The millionaire was not just a businessman, he was a man accustomed to getting what he wanted, and Lucas knew that if he was discovered, the consequences could be dire. Suddenly, the sound of tires screeching echoed down the street, sending a jolt of panic through Lucas's veins. "He's coming back," he exclaimed, urgency flooding his tone. We have to hurry. With renewed determination, Lucas plunged back into the engine, his hands moving faster than ever. He could hear Isabella's breaths quickening behind him, the fear palpable in the air. He was racing against time, but he refused to let fear dictate his actions. Finally, with a triumphant grin, Lucas turned the key in the ignition. The engine roared to life, a sound that felt like a victory in the face of adversity. "It's working!" he shouted, relief washing over him. But just as he was about to turn to Isabella, the heavy footsteps he feared echoed closer, followed by a familiar voice that sent a chill down his spine. "Isabella! I know you're here." Enrique's voice rang out, filled with rage. "Get in the car," Lucas urged, his heart racing as he jumped into the driver's seat. Isabella scrambled in beside him, her eyes wide with terror. As Lucas slammed the door shut, he glanced in the rearview mirror and saw Enrique storming toward them, fury etched across his face. "You can't escape," he shouted, his voice filled with venom. "I will find you." With no time to waste, Lucas slammed his foot on the accelerator, the car lurching forward as he sped out of the workshop and into the night. The world outside blurred into a haze of lights and shadows as he raced down the street, adrenaline coursing through his veins. "Where do we go?" Isabella gasped, panic rising in her voice. "Anywhere but here," Lucas replied, gripping the steering wheel tightly. "We need to find a safe place to hide until we figure out our next move." As they sped away from the chaos, Lucas's mind raced with possibilities. He was risking everything to protect Isabella, but he knew that the path ahead would be fraught with danger. Enrique wouldn't give up easily, and the consequences of their escape could be dire. But as he glanced over at Isabella, her face a mixture of fear and gratitude, Lucas felt a sense of purpose igniting within him. He was no longer just an invisible mechanic. He was a man fighting for love and justice, willing to put his life on the line to protect the woman who had sought his help. With every mile they put between themselves and Enrique, Lucas felt the weight of his decision pressing on him. He was determined to uncover the truth about Enrique's dark dealings, to expose the man who had terrorized Isabella. But for now, their immediate goal was survival, and Lucas was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The road stretched out before them, a path filled with uncertainty, but he was resolute. He would do everything in his power to keep Isabella safe and bring an end to Enrique's reign of terror. As Lucas and Isabella sped away from the chaos of the workshop, the weight of their escape settled heavily on their shoulders. The streets blurred by them, a cacophony of lights and sounds that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. Lucas's heart raced, not just from the adrenaline of the chase, but from the knowledge that their fight was far from over. They found refuge in a secluded cabin on the outskirts of town, a place Lucas had used for fishing trips in his youth. It was rustic and simple, but it provided the safety they desperately needed. As they stepped inside, Lucas locked the door behind them, his mind racing with thoughts of what was to come. "Lucas, what are we going to do now?" Isabella asked, her voice trembling. The fear in her eyes was evident, but there was also a flicker of hope, a sense of relief that she was no longer under Enrique's thumb. "We need to gather evidence against him," Lucas replied, determination hardening his resolve. "He can't get away with what he's done. We'll expose him for who he really is." Isabella nodded, her courage bolstered by Lucas's unwavering strength. They spent the next few hours going through everything Lucas could remember about Enrique's business dealings, piecing together a plan that would hold the millionaire accountable for his actions. They knew that Enrique would not take kindly to their defiance, but they were prepared to fight back. As dawn broke, casting a golden light over the cabin, they knew it was time to face the reality of their situation. Lucas could feel the tension building, the anticipation of the confrontation that awaited them. "We need to confront him," Lucas said, his voice steady. "If we don't, he'll always have power over you." "Are you sure?" Isabella asked, concern etched on her face. "He's dangerous. What if he retaliates?" Lucas took a deep breath, his determination unwavering. "I won't let him hurt you again. We'll face him together." With a plan in place, they made their way back to town, the weight of their mission pressing heavily on their shoulders. As they approached the mansion, Lucas's heart raced with a mix of fear and adrenaline. They parked a short distance away, gathering their courage before stepping out of the car. "Are you ready?" Lucas asked, glancing at Isabella. She nodded, her expression resolute. Together, they walked up to the grand entrance, the imposing structure looming before them like a fortress. As they entered, Lucas could feel the tension in the air, the remnants of power and control that had once enveloped the space. They made their way to the living room, where Enrique was pacing, his back to them. The moment he turned and saw them, his eyes widened in disbelief. "What are you doing here?" Enrique spat, fury igniting in his gaze. "You think you can just waltz back into my life after what you've done?" "We're here to end this, Enrique," Lucas declared, his voice steady. "We know what you've been hiding. We know about your business dealings, and we're not afraid of you anymore." Enrique's laughter echoed through the room, but it was laced with madness. "You think you can intimidate me? You're nothing but a mechanic, a nobody. You think you can take me down?" Lucas stepped forward, a surge of courage propelling him. "You may have wealth and power, but that doesn't make you untouchable. We have proof of your crimes, and we're not afraid to expose you." Isabella stood by Lucas's side, her voice firm. "You've manipulated and controlled me for too long, Enrique. No more. I'm taking my life back." Enrique's expression darkened, his arrogance faltering. "You think you can escape me? I'll make you regret this." But Lucas stood his ground, unwavering. "You've underestimated us for too long. The truth will come out, and you will face the consequences of your actions." In that moment, the balance of power began to shift. The man who had once belittled Lucas now found himself on the defensive, his facade cracking. The tension in the room was palpable as they faced off, the stakes higher than ever. Suddenly, Lucas pulled out his phone, revealing evidence he had gathered, documents, photos, and messages that painted a damning picture of Enrique's criminal empire. "This is just a glimpse of what we have," he said, holding the phone out for Enrique to see. "You can't silence us anymore." As Enrique's expression shifted from anger to panic, the reality of his situation began to sink in. The walls he had built around himself were crumbling, and for the first time, Lucas felt a sense of power coursing through him. "You're finished, Enrique," Lucas declared, the words ringing with conviction. "This is the beginning of your downfall." The millionaire's arrogance faded, replaced by a desperate rage. "You think you can take everything from me? I'll destroy you," he shouted, but the confidence in his voice was wavering. Isabella stepped forward, her voice steady and strong. "You've already lost, Enrique. Your reign of terror ends today. You may have tried to humiliate us, but the truth is powerful, and it will set us free." In that moment, Lucas knew they had turned the tide. They were no longer the oppressed, they were the ones fighting for justice. The humiliation Enrique once inflicted upon them had transformed into a weapon against him. The path ahead would still be fraught with challenges, but as Lucas looked at Isabella, he knew they would face whatever came next together. They were ready to fight for their freedom and expose the truth, reclaiming their lives in the process. The atmosphere in the mansion was electric, charged with an energy that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. Lucas and Isabella stood united against Enrique, the man who had once wielded power over them like a weapon. As the confrontation escalated, they felt the weight of their combined strength. Two individuals who had been underestimated, now standing firm against the tide of corruption. "You think you can just throw a few documents at me and expect me to crumble?" Enrique spat, his voice dripping with venom. But the bravado that once filled the room was fading, replaced by a growing sense of desperation. He was cornered, and for the first time, he was realizing the fragility of his empire. "Your empire is built on lies and fear," Lucas replied, his voice steady. "It's time for the truth to come to light. No more hiding behind wealth and power. You will face the consequences of your actions." Isabella stepped forward, her eyes filled with determination. "You've controlled me for too long, Enrique. I won't be a pawn in your game anymore. I'm reclaiming my life, and I won't let you threaten me or anyone else ever again." The tension in the room thickened as Lucas and Isabella stood side by side, ready to face whatever Enrique had left to throw at them. The millionaire's expression shifted from anger to realization. He wasn't invincible. The secrets he had buried were rising to the surface, and he could feel his control slipping away. "Do you really think anyone will believe you?" Enrique sneered, but his bravado had lost its bite. "I have connections, people who will protect me." "Connections built on fear and intimidation," Lucas countered. "The truth is more powerful than your money. It will spread like wildfire once we expose you. You've made enemies, and they won't stay silent any longer." As Lucas spoke, a sense of empowerment surged through him. He could see the cracks forming in Enrique's facade, the once unshakable confidence now wavering. The tide had turned, and Lucas felt invigorated by the knowledge that they were on the right side of justice. "Enough!" Enrique shouted, his voice echoing through the room. "You think you can take everything from me? I'll make you regret this." But Lucas stood firm, unwavering. "You've already lost, Enrique. Your time is over." In that moment, the door swung open, and a group of law enforcement officers entered the mansion, alerted by the mounting evidence against Enrique's criminal activities. "Isabella, Lucas, we received a tip-off," one of the officers stated, his gaze locking onto Enrique. "We need to speak with you about what's been happening here." Enrique's face drained of color as the reality of his situation sank in. The walls were closing in around him, and the illusion of control he had crafted was unraveling. "You can't do this," he shouted, but it was too late. The truth had come out, and there was no escaping the consequences of his actions. As the officers moved to apprehend him, Lucas felt a rush of triumph. The humiliation Enrique had once inflicted upon him was now a weapon turned against him. The mechanic who had been dismissed as invisible was now a powerful force for change, a man who had fought against the darkness and emerged victorious. Isabella watched as Enrique was led away, a mixture of relief and exhilaration washing over her. "We did it," she whispered, tears of joy filling her eyes. "We really did it." Lucas turned to her, a smile breaking across his face. "This is just the beginning, Isabella. We're free now, and we can finally live our lives on our own terms." Together, they stepped out of the mansion, the sunlight breaking through the clouds, illuminating their path forward. The town that had once turned a blind eye to Enrique's tyranny was now waking up to the truth. The whispers of their story would spread, and the community that had once underestimated Lucas would soon recognize the strength that lay within him. As they walked away from the mansion, hand in hand, Lucas felt a new sense of purpose. He was no longer just a mechanic. He was a man who had fought for justice and reclaimed his dignity. The journey had been fraught with challenges, but it had also revealed the strength of the human spirit. "Where do we go from here?" Isabella asked, her voice filled with hope. Lucas smiled, looking forward into the horizon. "Wherever we want. Together, we can build a new life, one that's filled with love, honesty, and freedom." The sun shone brightly overhead, casting a warm glow on their path as they stepped into a new beginning. Lucas and Isabella had not only triumphed over adversity, they had discovered the true meaning of courage and resilience. In a world that had tried to silence them, they had found their voices and reclaimed their lives. And as the town began to heal from the shadows of the past, Lucas knew that the journey ahead would be filled with possibilities. They had faced the darkness and emerged stronger, ready to embrace the future, together.